I'm from a small city in central Patagonia, east side of Patagonia, which is called Comodoro Rivadavia. This is an industrial petroleum industrial city, surrounded by, on its back by a desert, and on its front by the Atlantic Sea. It's a rather wild place, you know. It's as any, I think, as every petroleum industrial place, you know, is. And but I think the factor that it's in the middle of nowhere makes it a bit more extreme. And there is one element which probably powers this up into another level, which is the wind. The wind is very strong. It's you can have like 150 kilometers of wind per hour, you know, like, and sometimes for a week. You know. That's the place where I am from, and I think this place marked a lot of my being, of my identity, and therefore also of the language that I use, and the narratives and the topics that I use throughout my films. I think it's not a mild place, no? It's a place with extremes, and everything that has such an extreme through certain part of your life, it does mark you. You know, you have to see it as probably as the only reality surrounding you. But then when you learn that there are some other things, then you start comparing, and then you understand that that place, it may be unique. And therefore, you also learn to relate to such a place in a unique way. Basically, in such a place, you hate it or go against it, or you make something out of it. So I think that's what I did. No, I used a lot of these elements as metaphors to talk about other things, and at the same time criticizing much of this environment, but in a constructive way. The wind, as I said, is something together with the landscape, is something that either you really hate, you know, you just fight against it, or you just bring it closer to yourself and try to build something out of it, you know. It will just try to push you out of whichever goal or destination you're trying to reach, you know, like you can literally fly away with such a wind. I started using the wind as a character for my films, you know, like, or as a very important element, or as a character for the films themselves. And they became the very protagonists of these films. In such a place, it's you're confronted every day with it, you know, because it's like you have to clean the earth which is coming underneath, you know, like the door, you know, you have to lock well the windows, you know, like whenever you go out, you have to really prepare, you know, and or you open the newspaper and you heard there is a truck that's just like fell, you know, to the side because of these hard winds. So it's something that you're very much aware of it, you know. Everything is just very extreme. So you need to be able to learn also how to deal with it in a way that, not by copying structures or formulas from some other place and reproducing them in this middle of nowhere, but by just making your own identity of the place. And that's one of the things that, mostly because these societies down there are very, very young in terms of age, you know. My hometown has 100-something years, 110 years old, you know. We as a society sometimes on such a short period, you know, still don't learn, you know, like how to build your own identity, especially when we are coming mostly from immigrants from all over, you know, and we are a mix of something and we don't really know who we are and where we belong. On a very early stage, I learned how to make video, to make a film, since I think I was 12 in the beginning or mid 80s when my father bought a video camera. It was the boom of the VHS. Instinctively, it came as something that I had to fill a gap functionally, you know, because then you do such a thing, you know, like you record any social event of your family, or then I started playing with it because I was allowed to get out with the camera and shoot my friends, you know. So we started investigating the things which were possible to do with this camera, which was not only to record these social events, but at the same time, this needed to be something that was that fitted into a video clip or something that my friends or the family also liked, you know. So I had to please a certain audience, and that's how it started. And I got kind of like investigating and exploring more funny ways of using, or more entertaining ways of using the medium. It was one day, so we are in Patagonia, we are in this city, and the next town is 100 kilometers down south, and the other one is 400 to the west. There's nothing. We hear on the radio that there is a whale that has come out of the sea, you know. It's out there in the shore, you know, and the tide is very far away. The tide can be like sometimes kilometers far away, you know, in the beach, far up and down. And then there is this whale. It's a cachalote. It's a very big whale with a very big mouth, very thin like that. So my father says, we hear it on the radio. And he says, and it's like maybe 60 kilometers down south, in the limit with the next province. And let's go for an excursion, you know, let's go and see the whale. I'm with a friend, and we go also with my brothers. And we take the camera, of course. I mean, we really need to document this event. So then I'm thinking I was in 6th grade or 7th grade of primary school. And then we go. And as I said, the shore is, the tide is very long, very long, you know. So we arrived to this place. It's kind of difficult to access because it's a beach in the middle of nowhere, no? But we see that there are some people. There are a couple of cars parked there, you know, in this very deserted place. And then far away there we see the whale. And we see just a few people there, but I'm talking about far away. It's like maybe 500 meters away, you know, so it's like 5 blocks away. So you see them very tiny. But I turn on the camera and I start recording all this walk, you know, to the whale. So in the meantime, we are just talking, you know, and there's my father, my brother making jokes, and then my friend. But I'm focused on the whale, and from time to time I go to what's going on the sides, you know. So I have this image that it is kind of you're distracted, you know. You're trying to reach somewhere, but at the same time you're distracted by all this chatting, you know, murmuring and playing from your friends and brother and father, you know. And the walk is long, so it's like 500 meters. You take quite some time. You take maybe 8 minutes to get there, you know. So that's the whole process of getting there. And when closer we get, we start seeing people. What people does in such a case, you know, is they try, in order to save the whale, they throw buckets of water into him or her, you know. And then so they go to the sea, they take water and they throw it. So that's the picture that we see. We just see people around, you know, not that many people, maybe 6 people, and throwing with buckets, trying to save an animal which is, I mean, destined already to die, because it's impossible to, in such a place, you know, you're never gonna save the whale. But then as closer we come, we find out there was another element that we were missing from the distance and that we just see right there. Is that the jaw is being cut down. The jaw from the lower jaw of the animal has been cut down with a saw, you know. So yeah, that's the video, you know. Like when I get there, we see that, and then you just get the picture, you know. Somebody saw the animal there, came before anybody, came with a saw, and just saw the jaw, lower jaw of the whale, as a souvenir, you know. The whale was alive. And I think that symbolizes a lot of like what this place also is. It's very wild in that sense. Naturally, and also civilization is very wild. But just to complete the video or the picture, that tape, on that time, you would record some other thing and some other thing. Like the tape was like sometimes it came on 3 hours. So on 3 hours time you had like maybe 1 year or 2 years. And then there is maybe a Christmas and then New Year's and a birthday and whatever. So those tapes also would go to the family. You wouldn't be able to make a copy. It was not done in such a way. So you would give it to your aunt, your uncle, and they would disappear. And so all those tapes disappeared, And sometimes they came back, and they came back with some other thing on top because you were missing a tape, so you just put whatever. There was no etiquette or anything, and then they would just record something on top. And so this story ends up by the only way of picturing the story is with a tape that I think may be that tape with a boxing match on top, which was what probably my uncle recorded on top of it, or a football match, on top of the well footage, and then the story being told like this. With such an experience, I think I understood better like the language of video and film. And then later on, I understood that was called art, basically. But for me, it was something naturally that I didn't call it as art, Yeah, I'm very interested in the notion of reality and fiction. I understand reality as something that we construct, and as such, as a construction, I understand it as something that we can also deconstruct and rebuild it into whichever shape we want to give to it. My work explores that boundary between reality and fiction. Sometimes by really manipulating, elements of reality in order to get into some other optional reality or hyper reality that is very extreme in terms of image, audio, and probably the concept also. And some other times by just choosing and selecting and framing very specific aspects or close-ups of this reality and editing it in a very simple manner in order to be able to find those gaps into this reality and from there on to access through some kind of gate that will allow you to see this as something new, as some other option. In the case of Pasajes, for example, which is this series of films which are very simple. And in that simplicity, there is some sort of a key that allows the viewer and also myself to explore some other map or territory of reality. By this exploration of reality or this other fiction, I'm trying also to find ways of understanding different possibilities to whichever lies or in front of us. It's a way also of being critical, by selecting and editing from reality aspects that you may think can give you that passage to some other thing. So this film is very simple. It's very simple. It's just a guy that is opening doors, and these doors in very specific places in the city of Buenos Aires allowed him to enter into a place which naturally is not connected with the one he was before. This is an endless labyrinth of doors that would connect a church with a cemetery, with a butcher, with a boxing club, with a video club, with a library, with a university of social science, with a university of philosophy and of medicine, with a tunnel underneath an avenue. Endless gates will build up a map that is not the usual map of this city anymore, but it's so linked also to certain imaginary which comes maybe more from literature and comics about this place. And that's what I'm really interested in. I mean, Buenos Aires is a very magical place if you look at it like that. But nowadays, as so many other global cities, this image is crumbling, you know, in order to cope with certain contemporary days, you know, and so this city is changing into something that is leaving aside all that imaginary, you know, unfortunately. And all these places that I used are places where, by the time I was living in Buenos Aires, I always saw, and I was like mad about them, you know. They're like so rich, you know, like these buildings, you know, like which are like 100 years old, and you can see those 100 years old in it, you know, in every single brick of it, you know, and they are so rich in that sense. Maybe they're crumbling or they're very used. And there is a whole life which is very specific from that place, and it goes so organic, you know. It's like an ecosystem in itself. A lot of these times, you go through that door, and you enter into a landscape that is a different one from the one on the street. And I always thought how to do something on these places. And then one day I had the feeling that I understood that these places were the characters themselves. Well, I was trying to see it the other way around. These were the setups for something to happen, and it was not like that. These places were the characters, and what I needed was only a guide that would go through these places. So that was a whole reformulation for me of how a film could be made. The actor had to be very well chosen, and he shouldn't be an actor. So I asked this very good friend, who is called Federico Zuckerfield. He's an artist himself, coming from the surrealistic movement, but with a very social and political stand on art. He understood it perfectly what this video meant, and then we started going out to open these doors. But the film was already rolling in the moment that we were in front of a door. We knew that behind that door there was not what was supposed to be, but we were crossing a gate through that door, you know. And we were not asking any permission. We were with a very little crappy camera. You can see it also in the image. It's very pixelated, and we were like a lot of the times coming without knowing that we couldn't film there in such a place. I would go one day before, sometimes looking if there were cameras or guards, because the camera has a very strong presence in a country which is very much mediatized. You know, media has a lot of attention, and really media directs reality in that sense. Yeah. So wherever is a camera, people is very aware of a camera. So coming back again to this idea of when I suddenly discovered that suddenly was a new reformulation of how to make a film. This was not only in this formula of how to film it and how to edit it, but also in the way of how to write such a thing, you know. So the script was a map. For me, it was great, you know. It is great still, because I keep on repeating the same series. So the map, I found it on the street also. It's a map that I discovered on the street. It's a very old, amazing map of the city, and the script is just the pins through all this city, you know. So this is day 1, this is day 2. So by neighborhoods, the whole script is divided in scenes and days of shooting and the whole program. Well, that was great, you know, like the whole process, it became very, now you see just the film, the finished film, but I'm happy when I make a film where I am very consequent, you know, with the concept, with the finishing, and through all the steps that I made in order to reach that, I was very consequent, you know, to that idea and to the way of making it and to the whole ideology, if you want to say, behind it. So that one very much like that. It's a list of buildings, you know. It was like getting out for a purpose also. You're not a tourist, you know, like exploring an interesting place because of its touristic historical value, you know, and just taking a picture. We were going through the city with really a goal, you know, and we had to get into this place go through that gate without being noticed, you know, like find also excuses when we were asked why we were doing such a thing. So we had a lot of fun, and in like 7 days it was finished. So that was the first one, and then I thought, I don't want to repeat this into something that it's again a mirror of what I have done before or what you have seen before. But then suddenly I discovered that this formula could be also reproduced in many other ways. And then I thought, if this labyrinth on the first one is a horizontal one, I want to make one now that is vertical. And then the guy is gonna climb up a stairs, and these stairs is gonna bring him into another different stairs of another building, but they will be all interconnected into one same impossible building of 250,000 or 1,000,000 floors. And that's what we did next. It was a bit more painful because we had to, especially for the actor with the shoes, he had to climb. It's the same costume that he has, in the one in the doors and the stairs. And he had to climb up like, I don't know, we went like, maybe I think I counted it, we did like 300 floors in the lapse of 5 days, you know, and that was just up without counting down. Because we were not, there was like a rule which we wouldn't take any lift, you know, going down or up. So those were the two ones. And then I got invited by some very good friends in Jakarta, where I'm going in Indonesia from time to time to do some things. I got invited to do a video, a film, a work for the Biennale of Jakarta in almost no time. I had like 7-9 days to make something which would be shown 10 days later, you know. So I had to make something, finish it, and leave it there in order to be shown. Traffic is impossible. It's mad. It's mad. It's like a science fiction film, you know. And every year it's getting worse and worse, you know. I've been there like maybe 2 years ago from that moment, and I thought, when I'm getting there, it's gonna be even worse. In order to do 1 kilometer, you just take 1 hour, you know. So I thought, I'm not gonna really be able to make anything, you know, in such a short period of time, because whichever place I want to go, you know, I'm just gonna be half of the day on the traffic. So I thought, why not making something with the traffic itself? Because it's actually it's again like the wind, you know. You hate it, you know. It's impossible, but at the same time it's amazing because it's unique, you know. Like if you want 100 kilometers per hour wind to recreate it like that, you need this huge impossible machine, you know. If you want to put like 1,000 cars on a street, I mean, it's an impossible budget, you know. Again, it's like it's that logic of filmmaking that I thought could also be applied in reverse here. You know, just use what actually you have there as something that that is contradictory. You know, it's something that you dislike. You know, and try to also make something out of it because it's exceptional. And then I thought, what to do again with it? Again, the traffic jam is the character itself. So why not using that formula of Pasajes? You know, which I refused to use it again in the beginning, but then I thought, this is gonna be something different. So now in this film, there is this guy crossing this completely congested street. You know, like this avenue or this road is full of cars everywhere, and he's crossing it from right to left. And when he reaches left and gets out of frame, and there is another street full of cars, you know, and smoke and noise and sound, you know, and full of motorcycles, and he crosses it. And then again, cars are speeding up and crossing very fast. And they have an amazing technique to cross the street, you know, because they are very much accustomed to do such a thing, because they are now also crossing places mostly for people, you know. And so he crosses in a very unique way also. I mean, in a way that I would never dare to cross a street or a highway. And then he's crossing, and again and again and again, and this is endless. You know, like while you're filming from that point where you had conceived the idea to the moment that you realize it there, everything changes. From as much as you try to think of every element that you may encounter that may be different from the one you thought or you picture in the beginning, or everything that also may go wrong, you know. And then that changed also, you know, because my idea was like to have this amazingly wide road, you know, in which the whole city just became a road where cars would keep on passing and passing, and then somehow probably you have some things on the side that doesn't allow you to construct that map, you know, in such a way. But it became also a statement on walking, and that's something that I maybe didn't realize when I envisioned the idea. The guy is almost the only person walking in that city, in that landscape. You know, if you look around, there is no other person walking apart from maybe the train stations, where we also shot. But there is no people walking on the city, mostly because there are no sidewalks. It's a city with very few sidewalks. It's a reaction, you know. It's to the car and to the car industry, you know, and this monster, you know, that all the cars, when they come together, make up of roads, you know. And then it's a continuation of Pasajes. That's Pasajes 3, and it's called Sham. So these three are a postcard of a place. Jakarta on one hand and Buenos Aires on the other one. It's not the usual postcard, you know. It's not either the touristic postcard, but not also the image that we have of the city, you know. So that's my questioning goes into asking again: is this reality, you know, or is this fiction, or what is one and which one is the other one? And the one that I like is the one that I go through myself, through Pasajes. That's the city that I like from Buenos Aires. That's the Buenos Aires I like. And the city that is being built up nowadays is just something that leaves aside a lot of things that we, that this place and this society learned, you know, through many years and built up and constructed in an amazing way. And I think those things shouldn't be left aside, should be used. It's true, everything need to change, you know. We need to construct and to reconstruct, but we also need to look back and use the things that were really fruitful from the past, in order to, from there on, reformulate them or change them into something else. But then it's going, I think, into building this global image of a place. You are losing a lot of very essential aspects, especially of the city. Through my time, I was very much interested in a lot of writers that would give me an image, would reflect back an image of a place or a situation or a concept idea that I knew, and that reflection would be a different one, you know, that would really open up my imagination in order to be able to really see a place in a different way, with new eyes, you know. So literature can do that, the same as films. Cortázar is very close to that idea. Well, the obvious one, maybe Borges, you know, with all the mirrors and the dreams and the labyrinths, you know, which are elements that I also use. Roberto Arlt also. So yeah, I explore through my films in a very literal mode. Also comics, which has a very strong print in Argentina. It's something that aesthetic, it's something that I also use a lot. Comics that are very close also to some social comment, to some political comment, and at the same time very playful. So that's a film that takes place in Buenos Aires during a manifestation in front of the parliament, of the governmental house of the city house. This manifestation, the footage of this manifestation, it's a reaction to a law that is being written that same moment. And the protesters are people who are working on the street, making a living out of the street, and this new law that is being written actually says that they cannot do that anymore in the city center. This law involves people that actually are selling stuff on the street, but also prostitutes and transvestites. So all these people are gathered there in front of the city house, Yeah, and my brother goes and he's just living there in the center, and he goes and records all this happening, and then he gives it back to me. It's a very real thing, you know, because you see it, and it's these people fighting against this law, you know, and being very angry because they know that they are attempting against their very own mode of subsistence, you know. But at the same time, a lot of other factors start to play, and elements come into that game, you know. So you have like political groups that are sending maybe people, you know, to make a bigger riot than the one is being made by them. So this can play against the government that is just assumed now in Argentina. Then you have like people that actually wants to be in front of the TV cameras because it's full of TV cameras all around, and that's why my brother was able to record from such a close shot, you know, the whole situation. And then so people comes, you know, and it's just there is a guy with a bicycle, and he just bangs on the door with the bicycle because he knows that maybe his family is watching on the other side of the TV. And then there is a priest also kind of mediating between one side and the other one. And this priest may be a priest, but also may not be a priest, and he only uses that custom in order to be that character and to be able to mediate. And then I was, what to do with this? This footage is amazing, you know, it's really incredible, but what to do with it? Because if I really use it as raw as it is, I cannot really break through that reality, you know. I want to really be able to show, you know, to display all these elements into some kind of puzzle, you know, that makes sense from my point of view. Then this became, when you see it all together, as something that was taking place by then, 2004. It can also be taking place nowadays, anywhere in the world, and it could be taking place in the Middle Age, you know. People just like trying to break down these doors, you know, of the Tehran, you know, and then these doors are these huge colonial doors, you know, with a lion in bronze, and that's a picture that I had. And then throwing stones, you know, whatever they found on their way, you know, and then there's a person taking a sign out of a corner with a street name on it, you know, and they use it to put down the door, and they literally managed to put down that door. So it was timeless footage, you know. But when I pictured it as such, you know, with all the elements of the very image of video, you know, then all that was very far away from that reality I wanted to picture. So I decided to bring it closer to something that was really manipulated, in a sense that it would just like cut through the very surface of the image and go into something that allowed the viewer to be more open to see all these elements together in such a way. And then I use this very contour that of the figures to accentuate the image, and it looks more as a drawing than anything else. It looks more like a carbonic paper, you know, with a white trace of the shapes around. For me, it's very also close to some kind of old newspaper, you know, where the image is a bit blurred. Yeah, and that was the case. And then the case, it's also on that film where you have like two sides, you know. You have the people writing this law that you will never see, and then you will have the protesters, you know. And these protesters, they want to enter into this resident, into this building, and they are repelled by some kind of like a stream of, it's water, but you see it in the film like particles of some kind of elements, substance, you don't know what it is. And inside there is police of the building also, but that you see it very vaguely. And then at one point at the end of the film, one of the protesters says to the priest, which is the guy mediating between one side and the other one, he says, "Priest, tell them that nobody gets out of there," you know. And then the question for me is, in that film, what is out and what is in? Who is inside and who is outside? Yeah, reality is something that we can build up, and then we can just put whatever we want into it, and this confrontation takes place only because through that building or constructing that reality, and suddenly these two parts came together. But I think there are also ways of being able to deconstruct this and find solutions, you know, in a different way. And the film, it's basically researching that. Inside it's a film that it's rather recent. It's dealing with a sort of a production setup that I'm not very fond of, basically. But I had an idea that it was only realizable to do it in such a manner, you know. So I bet it for making it that way, and it's because it was very clear that I had to do it. And then basically, Inside is exploring the method of creating fiction. So I'm here talking about the very production way and manner of making fiction and films in this case. So you see a crew recording an object or a subject, and in one point you realize that this crew, or the shooting of this crew, is happening in a very, very slow motion. It takes a little time to realize that that's actually what you're looking at. And then you see that the director, in this case, me, myself, gives an order. You don't hear himself, but you see it, because he's raising his finger. And in the moment he does that, the image explodes. And then you realize, basically, they were not filming a subject, but they were shooting themselves on the reflection of a mirror. I was trying to place this crew in front of certain boundaries, in front of certain frontier and border between fiction and that reality. And the intention was to cross that surface of the mirror and to access into the other side of the mirror. And through that accessing, just being able to record another reality that may develop on that side. So when the image explodes in this very slow motion again, all these fragments of the mirror start flying in different directions, you know, in front of you, to the side, up, and also falling down. And in that, in all those directions, in that flow of the fly, they start reflecting the reality around. But that now it's just not anymore the complete image of reality. These are fragments of this, and with flares of light coming in and go and in and out. And so it's all a puzzle where you as a viewer and where us, the crew, try to recompose into some other universe. And that's basically what you see. You see these flying objects and mirrors, you know, and reflections all over the screen, creating this kind of cosmos which is out of the reality that you saw before. Then all the pieces fall to the ground, and then the crew very stubbornly keeps on recording these mirrors. Now, even though most of them are on their opaque side, on the gray side, and then they try to see any shade now, because there is not anymore any reflection, but only shades. And then again, you see now the crew finishing their task. You see the director looking at his assistant, you see the camera woman looking at the director, and some people moving on the background. And then the camera does a zoom in inside the lens of the camera, and that's the end. The thing is that you learned that before they were shooting to a mirror, and now there is no more mirror. So it's actually a fiction playing for another camera that is recording them. For me, it is, I think, the very essence of all my works is resumed here in a very conceptual way, and much more formal also than the other ones, but very clearly at the same time. When you see the film, the crew is not recording themselves on a mirror, they are recording the subject, and the subject is you, the viewer. And then you have the sound of all the murmuring and chatting of the people on the exhibition space also playing through the video. And it works great on an opening situation, because you really have the people talking all around, and at the same time you have on the video all the people talking around. I play a lot with sound as much as I play with image, and I think sound is 50% of a film in my case. And I use very little dialogue, very little language, spoken language. So I try to reflect to use sound, to be very conscious about sound when recording a film. That's something that I also probably learned because of this very early development of using a camera. You know, when you have a camera, you have to be looking with your left eye somewhere else. You know, the viewer is very present with your right. But also you have to use your ears, you know, and you have to be aware of what's going on. Not only because you have to perhaps point to another direction, because this camera is also recording the sound. So how everything needs to be in that right balance, and that I developed into what I do nowadays, where I play with sound in a very conscious way, and sometimes I take it to an extreme, and sometimes I play it very simple, as I do in Pasajes, where you only have the footsteps, and that's all, you know. And all the original footage of the sound that was recorded in those places, it's been taken out, ripped out, and I just put only footsteps, and I create new environmental sounds for each building. It's very similar, actually, inside in terms of sound, to Lucharemos hasta anular la ley, where I play basically with frequency, you know, with all the levels that one raw sound may have, you know. So when you bring it to the very lows or to the very high, they suddenly become a completely different entity, and I just go up and down with all these reflecting into a situation. But the most of the times there is very little editing on the original sound. It's just one clip that it fluctuates between up and down. Oracle, it's if I would have had the footage of the whale, it would be in Oracle. Yeah, Oracle, it's a puzzle made out of images which were recorded in the lapse of 10 years, since 96 till 2006. And so I have this big box of tapes, where I thought I want to do a film out of all this footage that I recorded everywhere. And then suddenly I realized that it was just too complicated and too complex to make a film out of it. And I decided to bring them all together into this same timeline, to take episodes or situations of all these places, of all these times, through that lapse of 10 years, and place them in one same territory, one same zone. And that's, again, it's a postcard, again, of nowadays. It's a postcard of today, but it's a postcard that is being made by an image that has been constructed by very symbolic recordings of situations that may not say exactly and particularly something about nowadays, but at the same time they say everything. There is, for example, a little boy playing with an air compression gun, you know, which was a neighbor in Buenos Aires, just shooting endlessly and shooting back and forth. There is a guy changing the lamp of that building that you have there in front. It's a tall tower with a light that used to be like this kind of turning lights that was going around the city. And one day from here, I see this light is not turning anymore. There is something that is obstructing it, but it's so far away. I had to zoom in with the camera, and then I see that there is a person on top of this antenna of the Rembrandt Tower changing that lamp. From that day on, that lamp is blinking, as you can see it now. It's not anymore a turning light. But it's a very dramatic image. You have like these clouds behind, and you have a guy climbed up to the topmost high building of the city. And those images that they have that duality, of you're looking at something that is a guy changing a lamp, but it's much more than that, Every single image can be read in that way, and every single image talk about certain sensibility also of how reality develops and fluctuates and is being made up by the very little situations, but also by the very big ones. And so it's just a combination of all these shots, which are 45, which for me every single shot is a film in itself. I mean, also because I have very long shots of each of these things, and it can be developed into one film, each shot. And they were kind of thrown in this timeline, and then there's a small narrative where you see a guy looking into a horizon, and there's a sea, and then you hear the waves, and then that's all you hear, and then sometimes in the very beginning there was a little bit of music with an image of an eclipse, and then in the middle point of the film that music also comes back, and it comes back in a way that it's like waking up all these images, and all these images, they become a bit more from what they were before, and now everything kind of explodes into this very chaotic construction, and then again it goes back into some sort of silent mode, and then it loops back in itself again and again. The viewer position is a position also of the main character of that film, which is this guy looking into the horizon, looking into this open, very open space. I mean, we are in such a way. We are like witnesses of how the world develops, how the future, present, and past come together in that very moment where we are looking at the horizon. So it's good you mention it, because the viewer is really that character looking into that infinity of time and space, and that's also what I'm developing in my last film. Just to tell you and to close probably that idea. There is a very short and nice quote from Borges that says, "The mind was dreaming, the world was its dream," and that's a little bit also what I developed in this new film, where I envisioned us, the people, the human being, as being in some sort of suspended space, and then some sort of suspension of time. And in that suspension of time, we envision the reality we are living now. We are basically dreaming ourselves at this very moment, while at the same time we are just being suspended into some outer space. And that's the position of the viewer in most of my films. I want to basically the viewer to look at these characters, not as characters from a very fictional story, but probably characters from a reality where actually they are the ones dreaming our reality.